Engine 1 from Car 1. Car 1's on scene. Assume in command. Give me a C.A.N report.
Hello, everybody. Nozzle Tov. This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the C.A.N report. Got a great episode for today. I have an esteemed, I wouldn't say colleague, but a mentor, inspiration, a well-known figure in the fire service in New Hampshire, retired Chief Mark Klose. He comes from Derry, originally for the fire department service, and then he held many other titles, and we'll talk about that. I am so happy to have you on today. Chief Mark Klose, welcome to the C.A.N report.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Great to be here.
Pleasure to have you, sir. If people don't know who Mark Klose is, especially in the state of New Hampshire, you're probably living under a rock, just to let you know, because the man gets around.
Yeah.
And he also gets the beef as well, as we were just talking about earlier. So thank you so much, Chief. This is actually a real pleasure. We got some important things to talk about, and I'm happy to talk about them with you.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. You know, I've known you since you've gotten into the fire service where you started and transferred over to Derry. And, you know, Derry's fire department's a great organization. Proud to be a past member of that organization. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's been a great time being on the Derry Fire Department. Everybody there is just super nice, super supportive, man. It's been great. Like, just nobody's got crap to say. Everyone's been really positive, and, you know, they all seem to just be willing to put in the work and support brothers and sisters. So honestly, I probably wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for them either.
Right. Good.
So Mark Klose, we're going to get into your bio here. It's pretty impressive. Mark has over 34 years in the emergency services. He is the retired chief of the Rochester Fire Department in Rochester, New Hampshire. He was also the emergency management director for the city. Chief Klose holds a bachelor's degree in municipal service administrations, an associate's degree in fire science, and an associate's degree in health science. He holds the following credentials: New Hampshire Chief Officer, Executive Fire Officer from the National Fire Academy, Chief Fire Officer, Chief EMS Officer, Chief Training Officer, and Fire Marshal designation for the Center of Professional Credentialing. He holds the distinguished honor of being the only fire service professional east of the Mississippi River to achieve and maintain all 5 professional designations. That's quite an achievement, Chief. That's a mouthful.
Yeah,
he's been a national registered and New Hampshire paramedic for 32 years, and he holds many certifications within the New Hampshire Fire Service as well. Just to name a few: Company Officer 1 and 2. He has Trench Rescue Tech. He has Ice Rescue Tech, Hazmat Tech, Fire Inspector. He has PIO. He has Rescue Systems 1 and 2. And the list goes on. He has served 15 years as a member of the FEMA and USNR team, Massachusetts Task Force 1, assigned to the Logistic Division as a logistics specialist. He's also served in New Hampshire Army National Guard as a flight medic with the 11th Medical Company, Air Ambulance stationed in Concord. And Chief Klose researched and developed the State of New Hampshire Line of Duty Death and Serious Injury Contingency Plan in 2001, when he was a member of the Derry Fire Department. Chief Klose is currently a team leader and the benefits specialist for the Granite State Fire Service Support Team, a team of volunteers that assists municipal organizations when they have a line of duty death. Wow. You have done a lot. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it.
That is quite impressive, Chief. Dude, I got to say, getting like all that, those chief officer credentials, that's a lot of work.
It is something I take a lot of pride in. You know, to hold all 5 of them was an accomplishment, and a lot of work, a lot of schooling, as you know, and you know, it helped me to really become a chief officer. And to this day, even being retired, I still hold those credentials. I still go to school. I still do my Con Ed hours, and just recertified my paramedic again for the 17th time. So I'll be 35 years by the time I'm said and done. So it, you know, even being retired, I still feel that if you're going to be dealing with the fire service or EMS services, you still have to do something to keep your finger on the pulse.
Sure. Yeah. You know, one thing I left out too is your nickname, Kowboy.
Yes.
How did you get that?
Yes, I got that at Derry Fire.
Okay.
One day I was working my part-time job, and my part-time job at that time was hauling beef to take to a meat processing plant. And I happened to pull into Derry one day with a trailer full of bovine and went in to go get my paycheck. And I was in my cowboy boots, my cowboy hat, had cow crap all covered over my legs and everything. And you know how the fire service is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys goes, "Oh, look at the cowboy." And that has stuck now that was in 1994 and has stuck ever since. So what are we looking at? 31 years I've had that nickname.
31 years as the cowboy. Okay.
Yeah.
I never knew the reason behind it. So that's a cool piece of history.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it.
I was when I walked into that, I was, at the time, we had an exit on the parking lot at Derry headquarters, and I walked in and we had a beer, a cabinet that all our paychecks were in. So I just happened to walk in, and at that time I was chewing tobacco and I had a big wad in my mouth, my cowboy hat on, and, because that's every kid wants to grow up and be a cowboy, right? Or a police officer or a firefighter. And the guy sitting at the day room table caught on to that, and that was it. It was done. And the funny thing is, I don't spell it with a C.
Right. You spell it with a K.
Yeah. So it's cowboy with a K.
Is it because your last name's Klose? Yeah.
Yeah.
Klose with a K. Gotcha. Was Derry your first fire department?
No, actually, Bedford Fire is where I started. I started in December of 98 as a call guy in Bedford, became full-time 90. And then at the time, Bedford, I went to medic school in 91 to 2, and Bedford did not have paramedic program. So I had multiple friends at Derry Fire, and they, said, "Hey, you want to be a paramedic? Come down to Derry Fire." And a lot of us were working at Chalk Ambulance, which was the 911 provider in Manchester at the time. So knowing that Bedford wasn't quite ready for paramedics, I jumped ship in 94 and went to Derry Fire as a firefighter paramedic.
So you always wanted to be a medic, or was that just along with the job?
It was along with the job. And what happened was I started out as an EMT basic, and then I was watching guys doing more skills at the time. It was called EMT intermediate. And then we had intermediate that could defibrillate. Then we had EMTs intermediate that could intubate and EOA. So every step you did more and more for patient care. And that's what I wanted to do, was patient care. And then I had an opportunity to go to medic school. Elliott Hospital was doing what is now called New England EMS Institute, was putting on a paramedic program that was part-time versus the tech program, which was full-time. So I still had to work and go to school. So we were the charter class at New England EMS Institute in 91 to 92. And graduated medic school. And because I was working at Chalk Ambulance in Manchester, that allowed me to develop my skills. Because again, Bedford, we didn't have paramedic protocols. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the town government really didn't see the need. And so I researched and developed the paramedic program in Bedford. And it wasn't until 1995 that we got paramedic protocols in the town of Bedford. And when I was full-time in Derry, I was still a call guy in Bedford.
Okay. And then you worked at Bedford as a chief for a while, right?
Yes, I left Derry Fire in the spring of 2002 to take a promotion to a captain. It was a training captain's position, which was near and dear to my heart. And then in 2008 was promoted to deputy chief. And then from 2008 until 2017 was the deputy chief of operations and EMS. And then in order to, looking at my future to become a fire chief, I knew I had to go somewhere else because I had less time to retire than the chief did currently at Bedford. And so I took the chief's job in Rochester.
Gotcha. That's a great history. I mean, that's an impressive resume you got there, Chief. So you did a lot. You accomplished a lot. And I mean, it's 30 years. You're still going strong. We're still keeping your medic license and still want to be involved. Now, how did you get involved with the Granite State Fire Service Support Team? Did you develop it yourself, or was that even around when you were starting to look in things?
It wasn't around. So, it's a great question. So a friend of mine and a very popular firefighter in Southern Hampshire, Dave Anderson, a.k.a. Ando, died in the line of duty of December of 2000. And big funeral. It was very cold out. Dave deserved everything he received. He rescued, if I remember correctly, he rescued some children. It was December 23rd, so right around Christmas. I believe it was either a triple or a quadruple fatal fire.
Wow.
Dave came out of the building after doing a rescue, went back in, performed a second rescue, came out, collapsed, and passed away. So during that event and days after, I went to the chief at Derry at the time, and I said, if this happened here, what would we do? And I started asking my networking system around the state, what would we do? And being a union firefighter, really what it was is that we would rely on Boston Fire, Local 718, to come up and help with the planning. You know what? We got a lot of smart firefighters, and it's something that we could do. But even I went to the state fire marshal's office, there was no plan. Like, there was no contingency plan, nothing in black and white to help any organization to get through a firefighter death or serious injury. And there's quite a bit to it. And so as my capstone project for my bachelor's degree, that's what I chose to do, was to write a plan that whether you from Salem to Pittsburgh, Keene to Rochester, anybody could use it as a template and to work their way through an incident if they had one.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a state plan out there on, now it's quite a bit aged. It's at the Commissioner of Safety at the time, Richard Flynn, actually state adopted it in 2003. And it became the state plan. So very basic, but it allows a department to start somewhere.
Sure. Wow, so it sparked for you a line of duty death in Manchester 25 years ago. And you knew that the state needed to be better, that we needed to treat our first responders better, to have something here local, right? To remember them.
Yeah, when and the funny thing is how it's morphed is at the time in 2001, I was just looking at us as firefighters, but it's really morphed into this massive ball that now I look at it as the family side, because the families need to be taken care of. We as firefighters, once we pass, right? Our time is done. Now it's the family or the department that has to pick up the rest of the pieces and carry on.
Yeah.
So, in the last, 15, 18 years, I'm looking at it now from the family side. In 2001, I was married. We had our first child, and that really kind of put things differently. How is my wife and my daughter going to be taken care of? And there was a lot of unknowns at that time compared to where we are now.
Yeah. And how many volunteers do you have? Obviously, it's not run just by you. So how do you get this going?
Well, one of my things is that what do we do with guys that retire? They have a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of them miss the fire service. So we have between 25 and 30 members. It's all volunteer. You give when you can. And what I chose to do was to recruit a lot of retirees and bring them back to the fire service because they miss it.
Yeah,
and this would be a great way for them to get involved. We have people that are in the insurance business that helps us with insurance questions. We have a couple lawyers that are volunteers that, we can reach out for guidance. A lot of them are fire officers, firefighters, union, volunteer, it doesn't matter. They all come and help, and it's been very successful. And we have traveled all over New England to provide services.
Mm-hmm.
We very seldom do we say no to a department or a family if they need services.
So I see here it says the team is part of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. Last program.
That is correct. Yep, that is correct.
What is that?
So the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation received a grant back many years ago to establish what's known as LAST, L-A-S-T, local area support teams, to do what we're doing, to help and support organizations and families get through the tragic events of a line of duty death. Now, at the same time, we were running parallel. New Hampshire was already established when this grant came out. So we were ahead of the curve. And by the goal of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation was every state was to have a LAST team in place by 2010.
Okay.
And we were established right around that 2006, 2007 timeframe.
That's impressive. Wow.
So
It's great that you were able to see the need, and then you actually were still ahead of the curve, and you were still able to get this developed and get it going when they gave you already a deadline, but you already had it. It just shows the initiative.
You know, the funny thing is, Mike, as this started evolving, myself, Chief or Bob Welch from Manchester Fire at the time, everybody knows him as Welchie. Myself, Bruce Cornelius from Merrimack Fire, and a whole bunch of other guys. You know, and nothing against Local 718, but do we really need to have Boston come up here all the time?
Sure.
To do it? There's enough competent firefighters in New Hampshire, and a lot of them work at funeral homes on their days off.
Yeah.
That we tapped into that resource and said, let's build this team so we can do it in New Hampshire. And if we need Boston, we can always call them. So that's kind of how the team concept came in. And in 2006, Barnstead had a line of duty death of Stephen Jones, and the fire chief at the time, George Krause, when we called him, he's like, I can handle it. I got it. No problem. We're fine. By day 2, he was so overwhelmed and called and reached out and said, I can't do this alone. So I made a phone call, sent some text messages, and about 10 of us showed up at his firehouse and said, okay, we're here to help. What can we do? And from there, it just spiraled into an official team. We have 2 trailers, support trailers that we can go, again, from Salem to Pittsburgh, Keene to Rochester, and perform funeral services all over.
And then, so when you talk about perform for the viewers and listeners, funeral services, what are you providing for them? What are you doing exactly?
So depending on a lot of it is really religious dependent. Mm-hmm. Some religions, have less than 24 hours to some that you can expand a funeral service out 10 days.
Sure.
So we help with the state fire marshal's office. They're the authority in charge of conducting an investigation into a line of duty death. When I worked with Fire Marshal Degnan, he realized that he doesn't have enough investigators to take care of the department and take care of the families. So we come in, and we usually work with the department, the chief, deputy chief, or his command staff, and say, okay, what can we do to help you? Planning, we can plan the funeral all the way from the funeral home, to the cemetery, pallbearers, to flower arrangements. Everything that a funeral director can do, we can do as well.
Because I know you guys provide bunting. From what I've seen, unfortunate that we've crossed paths due to these unfortunate events. I've got to see it personally in the works, and it's quite impressive. It's a well-oiled machine. Just what you talked about, what you provide a detail. So if you need someone to stand watch, you got that covered. And then you reach out to many other area departments to help with standing watch. If other departments can't have enough people to do that, again, flags, bunting, resources to help transport, and even not just the supplies, but you really do a great job with educating people who've never had to stand ready at a line of duty funeral. And Correct. You guys do a fantastic job as we are all lined up with the sea of blue, you let us know, this is how I want you to salute. This is how I want you to stand. When the services come rolling by, this is what you're expected to do. This is how I want you to walk through for the viewing, all of it. And it's actually quite impressive of how well-versed everybody is, and everybody who is there to pay the respects. There's no question. Like, they know that they're there, and you guys are giving the directions and orders, and nobody says, well, who the hell are you? Why are you telling me what to do? They know, like, okay, you guys are leading this scene, and you're calling the shots, and I'll listen to you.
Yeah, organized chaos, as we call it in the fire service, right? Herding the sea of blue, it's herding cats. We're all type A personalities, but somebody does have to take that lead. And we have no issues doing that for organizations because, again, the organization's in mourning. And I'm a fire service survivor. I lost my senior lieutenant at Bedford Fire, Lieutenant Jim Clark, and in April 11th, 2013, after he suffered a heart attack after getting off duty. And so I can say I've been there, seen it, done it, and have the T-shirt. And and it all comes from experience. We're very fortunate. We use the National Honor Guard Commanders Association levels of service. So we have a level 1 service, which is a true line of duty death. We have level 2, which is an active member, non-line of duty. And then a level 3 is retiree. So somebody fits into one of those categories. And within those levels of services, certain things that we can say to the department, this is what you can do. And then these are things that you can't do. Obviously, level 1s take top priority. We try to save everything for, the person that died in the boots. A lot of people want to celebrate their member, which we totally get. But if he's off duty, there's only certain things we can do. Sometimes it gets, we have conflict resolution that we have to do, and that's okay. It's all about emotions. But we're the outside people, and we come in and say, okay, this is what we can do. And by the time the services get around, it works out.
Good. Now, how do you classify the level 1, level 2? Is there, like you said, you mentioned the honor guard. Is that off of that specification, or is there an actual national list that everyone has to use to get that level 1 or level 2 service?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. Here in New Hampshire, we have a state law that under RSA 153, state fire marshal has to be notified of a line of duty death or a serious injured firefighter. Burns, multiple trauma, building collapse and those things. So the fire marshal is the lead agency that does the investigation into the event. And then we work very closely with the fire marshal's office, and we pretty much know what level it's going to be by their investigation. Now, unfortunately, some of it takes time. An autopsy, even though an autopsy is not required, we try to get one done anyways. And that's the fire marshal working with the New Hampshire Medical Examiner's Office, because that helps us in the long run when it comes down to the benefit side of things. So, when Jim died, we made the phone call, went right up to Concord, brought his body up there, and they conducted an autopsy on Jim. So, there's timing in this whole thing. So, once we knew it was going to be deemed a line of duty death by the fire marshal's office, we went right to a level 1. Sometimes we've seen, active members maybe killed in a motorcycle accident, motor vehicle accident, unfortunately, heart attacks. There's a federal law that protects firefighters and police officers 24 hours after they get off duty or training. Lots of times they'll fall outside that 24 hours, 30, 36 hours.
Just going to ask, is there like a grace period? Like, God forbid it was like the 25th hour. Are they going to be denied that level 1 service because the clock ticked just past that time frame?
Unfortunately, some of the cases they do.
So you can put a time on death then for that. That's unfortunate. That there is that window and there's no grace period. And I know it sounds morbid, but it's like we care. It's important to us, and we want to be remembered in a certain way. And like you said, the families and their brothers and sisters want them to be remembered and paid the respects that they deserved and they worked for. And I'm sure you've had to deal with those type of issues where, it came up on the 26th hour, so they don't get the level 1 service. How do you battle that? How do you, obviously you're not talking to the whole department. You're having to talk to the fire chief or whomever is the representative. How does that go over? Do you make that decision of, I'm sorry, it's not a level 1, or how does that get handled?
Well, lots of times, again, we work directly with the fire marshal's office, and they'll bounce stuff off of us, and lots of times they'll call me because I have the experience with this, is that what happened prior to the event. And I'll give you an example with Jim Clark. So Jim got off duty at 8 o'clock after his shift, went home, and was found at 4 o'clock in the afternoon by his daughter dead upstairs in the hallway. So what happened from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock? So when we started doing the investigation, we went and looked back. Well, normally in the morning, the officers do a shift transition. You know, how was the last 24 hours? Well, he didn't conduct that. And that was not Jim Clark. Then he went home and told his mother, I'm not feeling good. And then he canceled. Jim was a farmer, and he had somebody coming to weld a piece of farming equipment. He canceled the welder. And then Jim was a track coach at Goffstown High School. He canceled track because he wasn't feeling good.
Yeah.
So when we went back during the investigation, and it was kind of funny, the on-duty lieutenant, after we got notified that Jim passed, we were back at the fire station, and it was just him and I. And I just happened to say to him, I said, did Jim have any signs and symptoms? And the lieutenant said to me, he goes, he never transitioned with me in the morning. He just left. And I'm like, what? And that was totally out of character for Jim, because he always did his morning transition.
Sure.
And so that's how we found. So he may have been infarcting early in the morning. Now, I was up. So he did 4 calls after midnight that shift, and I was out on most of those calls. And he never complained. He looked fine. But the onset of that heart attack could have started that morning. And then by him telling these individuals that he wasn't feeling good, we knew that something was happening. Now, that's within the 24 hours, but that's how you kind of guide these. The 20-hour, it's the same thing. We would have to go back and look at the events leading up to the death. And if somebody's infarcting or has said something within that 24 hours, even though it's the 26th, we would still probably move forward with the line of duty death investigation. And then again, the fire marshal deems it whether it's a line of duty or not the Granite State Fire Service support team, because under the law, that's the fire marshal's call.
Wow. And then so when you talk about having to do those lengthy investigations and the fire marshal having to do their investigation, we talk about cancer, right? You've done a great job trying to get those benefits and services related to the people who have died in line of duty because of cancer. Now, that's hard to equate for time, right? Like, how do you investigate that? That's got to be really, really good. That's like a needle in a haystack kind of thing.
Yeah, it's unfortunately we've been unsuccessful with previous cases because cancer is so new, and I'll give credit where credit is due. Professional Firefighters of New Hampshire, the PFF of NH, is doing a great job. Brian Rill, as the president, trying to get some legislation changed.
Yeah, he's been really active with that.
They're making some good headway. We do have a case going forward. Lieutenant Jess Wyman from Nashua Fire died from cancer, and it was deemed a occupational line of duty death. So the fire marshal investigated it. The commissioner of safety ruled on it. The workers' comp ruled on it as occupational. Now, with that being said, Jess documented her death, and not to be morbid, but she documented every hazmat call she went on, every building fire she went on, any call that was suspicious in nature, she documented. So that was all of the history during the investigation. And we're getting ready to file for benefits under the Public Safety Officer Benefit Program, which is the federal program that protects firefighters, police officers, EMS workers. And that will be the first case that I have filed under the cancer law. Now, typically, a caveat to that is that the Public Safety Officers Benefit Program usually does not rule on cancer cases unless it's 9/11 or the 9/11 related cancers,
Gotcha.
the World Trade Center cancers, because of the historic event. With Jess was also a member of the USAR team, Massachusetts Task Force 1. She was deployed multiple times during natural disasters. We don't know what she came in contact during those events. She was in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. We have some evidence based in pictures that she was in mud, and all that mud is contaminated, so we're going to use that as well when we file for benefits.
Wow, that's great. That's some serious work. That is a lot of time.
A lot of time.
It's a lot of time, sir. That is impressive.
We just finished, I can tell you, we just finished a claim that I think you might be familiar with this one, and I have permissions to talk about this. Steve Tower from Goffstown, New Hampshire Fire Department, died at CPAT, taking the candidate physical agility test, completed it, passed it, was in the rehab section, had an onset cardiac arrest event, and passed. We filed the claim in that was August of 2020, and his widow just got paid the claim by the feds last month.
Wow.
Almost 4 years. So whether local, state, or federal, these benefits don't happen overnight. And Steve's claim was in the system for almost 3 years before it got paid.
Just because of the investigation, because of the time frame?
Paperwork, you need additional evidence and all this other stuff. It's actually was under legal review by the lawyer down in Washington. It sat in legal review for a year, from January 2024, January of 2025. And, you can't question it. It's something that just takes time. And she just was notified the end of January that Steve's claim was paid.
Wow, I'm so happy it finally happened. She got paid, and the family is, getting some kind of resolve from that. Now, that doesn't, though, when you talk about the level of services that they also get for the funeral, you don't have to wait for that. Right? You're talking about the benefits of them getting the pay to help with cover costs. When we do the funerals for them, the level 1, the level 2, level 3, do you still have to wait for the fire marshal to give their line of duty death nod on it, or?
Pretty much. But again, we know within a time frame what we can call it and what we can't call it. If there's going to be, and I say this all the time, you only have one chance to get this right. Okay. And because we're not going to dig somebody up to do it again. If, there are cases where it's conflicting. We don't know if it's going to be a line of duty death. So what do we do?
Yeah.
And that's the gray area. And that's where, a bunch of us sit down and say, okay, if we do it this way, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And if we do it this way, what's going to happen? And what's the worst of the two evils?
Mm-hmm.
Because you only have a chance to do it right once. Yeah. And let's make sure we get it right and they get what they deserve.
Wow. That is, talk about, like, you're doing this for free, right? You're not, there's no compensation for the time that you put into this. And I think it's something to be commended incredibly. Like the fact that you're dedicating, and not just you, but you have a team that's dedicating so many hours, so much manpower. And you think about, like, you retired, you want to enjoy your retirement with your family and do what you want to do. And then, to take this on still, I mean, you already took it on, but now you continue with it, and to dedicate so much energy to get the benefits that these people deserved, the countless hours. Do you even know how many hours you put into that? Like, and again, I'm sure it's traveling, the phone calls, the emails, just everything that you're putting in. That's a full-time job right there. And without the compensation, you do it because you love the fire service. You do it because you care about these people. And some of these people that you're doing, obviously, really, really well. And that's what I think keeps that fire going, because you have the love for them and you have the love for the fire service. And I was just talking to Will Tallheimer from Derry just the other day, and we talked about line of duty deaths and how it's so important that we honor their memories, and that we honor them and we pay the respects that they deserve. They put their time in, they gave back to the community, and their family sacrificed. And it's great to have people that actually still care and devote so much of their life for these people, some of them they don't even know.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a shout out to the members of the Granite State Fire
Please
Service
do.
support team. If it wasn't for them volunteering, we wouldn't have a team. We'd have something, I'm sure, but they're all dedicated. They all volunteer. And under the NFFF program, when there's a level 1 line of duty death, we can be activated. Our expenses we can put in for expense report and get reimbursed through the NFFF.
Okay.
Not a single person has done that. I don't do it.
Wow.
They give up their own time. Their organizations, whether they're a chief officer or a firefighter, their organizations have bought into it. Guys, I've seen firefighters get time off to help. Chief officers, take their day and help. And I just can't say enough about them. And like I said, we have active members that are still working. A lot of us are retirees that, this keeps us involved and keeps us with the fire service. And, we can sit at that kitchen table and have a cup of coffee and that was a goal. Of course, here we are 25 years later. I never thought I would be retired. I knew someday, but I'm now that retiree that wants to stay involved, and this is a great way to do it. And again, these team members have been to Maine multiple times to help, Vermont, Massachusetts, upper state New York. Whether we're bringing our support trailers or we're providing service plans. So we probably have 30 or 40, maybe 50 service plans on file. So we pretty much know if we have a department that's a small volunteer department, here you go, here's a plan. Larger, municipal department, here's a plan. Mm-hmm. Take what you can out of it, use what you want to use out of it, and that's how we make the system better. And they do it all for free. And none of them have asked for anything in return.
I think that's fantastic. And the fact too, right? Like you said earlier, and you just said it now, it's for the fire service. It's whether you're career, whether you're volunteer, you're doing the same job that everyone's doing, right? And that, those fallen deserve that respect. And there is no classification of whether you get a paycheck for it or you don't get a paycheck for it. You dedicated your life, you paid the ultimate sacrifice, you're going to get treated with respect.
Yep. So if there is some, how do I want to say this politically correct? You're a union firefighter. You belong to Derry Fire Department, which is a unionized fire department. Now, if a union firefighter dies in New Hampshire, we automatically call Boston Local 718. They have the same thing. They have a whole funeral team that comes up. They came up when Jim died. At that time, I needed to be a deputy chief. I didn't need to be Mark Klose on the Granite State Fire Service support team. I needed to be there for my department. So Local 718 came up, did a phenomenal job. Unfortunately for Jim's service, the day of his funeral was the day of the Boston Marathon bombing.
Oh.
So, and I can tell you, again, here's the New Hampshire Fire Service. All the guys that were coming to Boston, to New Hampshire, had to all go back to Boston. They were all recalled. So the day of Jim's funeral service, I literally went out to the crowd and I picked guys that I knew and said, take care of this because Boston's not coming.
Yeah.
And we were just hearing about the bombing, but all those guys just came out of the sea of blue and just took over and started calling cadence and made stuff happen.
Wow.
And it was perfect.
That's impressive.
So that's where we work with PFF&H. Unionized firefighters get unionized help from Local 718. But what does a small department over in Ackworth or, on the other side of Peterborough, New Ipswich, what do they do? What do they get? And then that's where we fill that hole for those non-union departments.
It's so important. And you're right, because those smaller departments, they don't have the staff. They don't have the members to do it. And they have jobs they have to go to. So if they go to their employer and say, yeah, my fellow brother passed away from whatever event, I need the day off. Well, do you think they're going to get it? You never know.
You're building widgets, and the widgets don't get built if you're taking the day off.
Exactly. Like if it's, they have to earn time off from their other employer, but sometimes they could say, no, I need you here. You don't get it off of that. It's not a bereavement day for you and you have to stay here. Or, You know, you have to burn your earn time for it. And those people have to be at their job. And that's where you guys come in and help fill those holes and provide those services for them.
Yeah, you make a great point, Mike, about bereavement leave. You look at pretty much any employer, bereavement is very specific, husband, wife, child, mother-in-law, father-in-law, mom, dad. Nothing says anything about your friend at the firehouse.
Correct.
Or so you're right. A lot of these, they're torn, they may not get the day off. Again, we had, what happens when the fire chief dies? The leader of the organization dies. And we had that in Hopkinton.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah, Hopkinton, the fire chief passed away during the fair. Yeah. What happens? They still had a detail to provide to the fair, mourn. And, so again, the team got together. We came in, we brought some fire chiefs in just to run the organization because they still got to go on calls.
Yeah.
You still got to respond to 911s. And, so we brought fire chiefs in to help and mentor the deputy chiefs to get through that, and that was a big funeral. We had over 3,000 people for the wake.
Wow.
And it was a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, the leader of the organization passed away, and that trickle effect goes all the way down.
Yes, sir, it does. Absolutely. What happens if it's a union firefighter and he dies for his or volunteer fire department? So what do you do with that?
Yeah, another great question. I'm glad you asked it. So I just worked with John McAllister from Nashua Fire, who is, I believe he's the Secretary Treasurer for PFF&H.
Yes, he is.
And I reached out to him and asked again that question. So the PFF&H has taken the stance that if you're a unionized firefighter working in your home community or volunteering or per diem in a non-unionized firehouse, you pretty much won't be able to retain the services of PFF&H. So that's something union firefighters, hopefully that listen to this, be careful, and be cautious. That's in New Hampshire. I don't know about other states. But I know when I was at Derry Fire Department in 1998, I believe it was the IFF National Convention in Phoenix, that the resolution was passed that no unionized firefighter would volunteer outside of their department. Well, if we don't volunteer, who is going to? And especially, here we are 30 plus years later that, it's hard enough to find firefighters and recruitment and retention.
Yes, sir.
But, and I get it. There's a lot of union firefighters working for their home communities. Mm-hmm. If you're a line of duty death in that home community that's not a union firefighter, you won't get the assistance from the IAFF.
When you say get the assistance, that meaning the benefits of?
No, that would be like the funeral service benefits, meaning they would come in and run into planning and working with the department and working with the survivors and stuff like that. As far as the benefit, each department is different, on applying for local, state, and federal benefits. I know that, I actually, let me take that back. I really don't know what each department does. Even in Derry Fire, I don't know who's the designated point person to file a claim if something was to happen.
So like, for example, I'll just use myself. So if I'm in the town of Milford and I'm a call guy and I die in the line of duty serving the town of Milford, that still though be classified as a line of duty.
Oh, sure. Yes,
so
absolutely.
So it'd still be on that level and it'd still be you'd work to get those benefits paid to my family. But again, it wouldn't be covered any of the IFF stuff. That's just funeral arrangements. So just to be
Pretty
clear,
much.
right?
I don't think there's an IFF benefit. I don't remember anyone. I don't remember any, so yeah, but like when Boston came to Bedford, they brought a team, work us through the services. You wouldn't get that service from, they wouldn't come to Milford because you're not a union firehouse.
Gotcha.
So that's where the Granite State Fire Service support team steps in. And we would come and work with Milford to work through the process. And then as it goes, it continues, we would apply for the benefits for your family.
Sure. A lot of red tape.
That's why, A lot of people don't want to talk about this subject, but, it really needs to be talked about. We as individuals need to be prepared. And how can you prepare yourself for this? Well,
that's a great question,
Derry,
Chief. How do you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. I thought you were going to ask that question. Now, and they used to have it in Derry, and let me ask you that. We used to have packets, line of duty death packets. And, you put your wishes in there, and, again, religion plays a fact, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, what are your beliefs? When do you have to be buried? How can you be buried? All those things need to be known to the organization to help. So in Derry, we developed a line of duty death packet, and in there was from your emergency contact to your kids' names to who do you want from the department to help notify your families, allergies, meds, tattoos. Under the RSA in New Hampshire, the only organization that can give out a positive ID is the state medical examiner. So, we put, all that information, as much information, you might think it's stupid, but really it's not. And again, I instituted this program in Bedford. And when I got the phone call that Goffstown Fire was going to Jim's house, I immediately left my house in Manchester, responded to Jim's. He lived on the Goffstown Dunbarton town line. I called the boss and I said, go to the office, grab Jim's line of duty death package, and tell me what I need to know. Now, I got 90 million things going through my mind. I could not, for the life of me, remember Jim's two girls' names.
Isn't it crazy how that happens? You know someone for so long, and you can remember almost every other detail, but sometimes in those time of crisis, it's just some of those simple things that just escape your mind because you just have to focus on something else.
Yep. So the chief went to his office, pulled out the packet, waited for me to get to Jim's house, confirmed that Jim was dead, took my time to mourn, and his daughter Allie, who I didn't know, I couldn't remember it. So he told me that what her name was, and so it really helped me handle the situation at the house because it was a very stressful situation. So as I'm dealing with the police department, I said, okay, he needs to go to Concord for an autopsy. And the police officer looked at me and went, what? I said, yeah, he just got off duty. He's covered for 24 hours. This is a line of duty death. And he's like, what are you talking about? The police officer had no idea what a line of duty death was for a firefighter or a police officer.
Is it the same? It's funny you bring that up. I hate to cut you off, but so when it's a police officer, do you know what they have to do?
Pretty much the same as us. They're typically involved in violent crimes. So we know pretty much that they're a level 1, the vehicle accident, stabbing, shootings, what was it? Just this week alone, we lost 6 police officers around the country from shootings. So we know pretty much they're low priority, they're low numbers in heart attacks, but we do see when they're trying to apprehend somebody, they might have suffered a heart attack. But again, they're in the middle of doing their duties.
Sure.
So it's a level 1. Sometimes when they're doing their annual physical agility test, they'll have a heart attack. It's done, it's a line of duty. So police officers, they have the same investigation. It's done typically by the New Hampshire State Police. And from there, it's the federal, they have the same state law as us under Group 2. So they have to follow, it's called the Administrative Services Chapter 21I. So the investigation is the same. They have to meet the same workers' comp RSA 281A definitions. And then they get the local state benefit. And then they do the same process filing for the federal death benefit. Now,
what if, because this is becoming quite the issue and it's a very hot topic, suicide. So
suicide.
Is it so now if that's, if a member takes their own life within the 24 hours, is that considered line of duty?
Great question.
That's a tough question. Sorry, I didn't mean to
It is a tough question, and I need to handle it with with knit gloves because we haven't had one yet. So we haven't had to deal with that yet. So unfortunately, we're going to have an incident to pave that way. Law is in there. We have a law in New Hampshire that protects us. The investigation would be new. Same thing. I would believe that the fire marshal will do its due diligence all the way, and to make sure to dot their I's and cross their T's for that. And not only are we protected in New Hampshire, we're also protected federally now for a suicide. And the federal law actually gives us an extended 45 days. So,
okay.
Yeah. So if there's an incident within 45 days, to apply for the benefits is one way. After 45 days, so say if we have a trauma event, and multiple bodies, children, whatever, and then after 45 days you commit suicide, again, the investigation would have to show that there was a traumatic event within its time frame, and then again, investigation-wise, was there a letter? Was it financial reasons? Was it relationship reasons? Or was it true work-related reasons?
And that's a question, is because we talk about PTSD, right? Like, so that's something that's building up over time. And if they're seeking help already, so that I imagine you look into that documentation. Obviously, they can't, it's a patient doctor HIPAA, but I imagine it's probably like the family would tell people like, yes, he or she has been seeking help. He or she is battling PTSD, whatever happened, triggered that, and they made that decision. Imagine that investigation would go into that as well.
Yes. Again, even though there's HIPAA confidentiality, with medical records and stuff, the fire marshal's office can subpoena the medical records under the state law to help them conduct the investigation. Under 21I 29A, that is not subject to the 91A law, the right to know law. So nobody from the media or family can actually request those medical records under the law. It's retained to the Department of Safety. So, which is a good thing for us. But that's just something so simple. And if I could share, I just had a friend pass away this past weekend, grew up together, rode the bus together, went to school together. We served the town of Bedford together. We're Bedford kids, 55 years old, had a heart attack. He retired from the police department in 2020, but he stayed on as a part-time special police officer.
Okay.
So I reached out to the deputy chief today and I said, did he work a shift Friday night or a detail, a special detail Friday night or Saturday? And the deputy chief came back and asked me why. And I said, because we can relate this heart attack, it ended up being a heart attack, back to work within 24 hours. And that's under the federal PSOB law. Well, we need to ask that question because we need to take care of his family. Because if he did work with detail and it was within 24 hours, then we're going to do a line of duty death investigation, et cetera, all the way down.
Yeah.
But somebody just has to ask those questions.
And somebody needs to know to ask those questions.
Somebody needs to know to ask those questions.
Right. I think that's the hard part, is making sure. And that's why we do this here. That's why this is so important to talk about this, because there's people who don't know that information.
Again, I appreciate you having me, because I know that the audience you're now getting at, and, and you're right, this is a great place. And all I'm asking is, one, as individuals, make sure you take care of yourself and take care of your family, make sure your documentation is ready. And two, to, maybe somebody like Will, who's been to the NFFF National Memorial Weekend, has the drive to take this on for their department and say, hey, let's put these line of duty death packets together. Yeah. That way we're ready.
Nashua, when I was on Nashua for a brief time, we filled those. You had to complete those. And that was the first time I've ever completed something like that. And I found it very valuable. You're right. I think departments need to implement that and make sure that their members fill those out completely and take it seriously. I think that's, the biggest thing too, is that especially when you have younger members, I don't think sometimes they don't understand the severity of it, because I'm 20 years old. I'm going to live forever. And you kind of just, you don't really take it to heart, and you just kind of fill out whatever you want to fill out. But then when the moment comes, your parents are going to see that, or your loved ones are going to see that, and they're going to try to figure out why you filled it out kind of haphazardly. And, as I get older, I realize how important it is to put down the proper information, because my wife and my kids are going to want to make sure that I'm remembered correctly. And I want to make sure that, I'm honored the right way. I think we all deserve it.
You're living in the firehouse, right? How many, besides we know, both of us know a gentleman who served in the military, right? There's some guys that don't talk about that, but there's honors and benefits that they receive.
Correct.
But you would never know they were in the military, because they just don't talk about it. So having them put that down on that piece of paper is vital, because they'll get honors.
And actually a good question on that. So when you have somebody who dies in line of duty, and you or not even just, who had passed away, and you're doing your level 1 or level 2 services, and they do have a military background, is it easy working with when the military comes in to do their side of it? Is it pretty easy to work with them?
Absolutely. Typically what we do is we take a back roll onto that, say, typically at the state cemetery, the veteran cemetery, the military folds the flag. They present the flag. We allow them to do all their military honors, and then we come in and finish up. We don't, they have the top priority. That individual gave and signed his name on that dotted line to protect this country from domestic and foreign, enemies. They deserve it, and the military gets the first right of refusal to do it. Kind of funny that you asked that. We did as the team, we did a specialist, Mark Dakota, in Waterville Valley. It was our first veteran that was killed in action. He was 21 years old, from Waterville Valley, and brought him home. The whole service was at Plymouth High School. So we worked with the military and what they were going to do. Well, as soon as the military honors were done, nobody knew how to get him out of the gym. Like, what do we do? Yeah. So I mustered up the bagpipe and said, we're going to pipe him out of here. And because once the military was done, nobody knew what to do.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm like, well, we're not going to sit here, because we were having the reception in the gym as well. Okay. And so I ran out, grabbed the bagpipers, and I said, when I gave you the cue, you come in. They came in, they marched them. We grabbed the casket, and we marched, and we bagpiped them out of the gym. So, sometimes we got to fly on that, but yeah, we work very well with the military, and can't say enough about it. All the branches we work with.
Yeah, I got to say that you guys, from every event that I've been to, when you guys are a part of it, it's impressive. You guys are just so well tuned. It's a well-oiled machine. I can't say it enough. It's you guys. I know you guys are like the ducks that are swimming on the water, right? But the feet are going crazy underneath, right? And, because nobody's going to see that happening, and you guys play it off so well. You guys are always running around, but you don't even look like you're running. You may, it looks like, for you guys feel like you're running around, but for us, I just see you walking. You guys are making things happen. You're lining hundreds of firefighters and other officials up to get them where they need to be. And that's quite a feat in itself. Getting the funeral services, getting the family where they need to be, and honestly, just talking to the family and letting them know these are the things that are going to be happening for this next week of getting these services, these funeral services. Because honestly, we talk about the benefits for the fallen firefighter, but the family's not caring about that. They're caring about the fact that about the funeral services. They're caring about what are they going to do for tomorrow? And I think you guys seem to provide not just the funeral services, but you're providing that, you're consoling them, that we're going to be here for you. If you want us here, we'll be here night and day. If you need someone to sit with you, we'll sit with you. And if you just need someone to hold your hand, we'll be there to hold your hand. And that's really important because you have the departments that are there too. That's their brothers or sisters that passed away, and they want to be there for them. But they also have to work. They have to provide the service to the community that they swore to protect. So unfortunately, there are going to be times that they can't be there. And you guys are a warming voice to the families that need that help, that you're assisting them with every step of the way, and you're not rushing them. And I've seen you guys, the way you treat the families, and you treat them with the most utmost respect and dignity. And again, you're coaching them along the way. I see you guys, placing your hand on the small of their backs and ushering them in, helping them along. And it's a sombering thing, but it's also pretty amazing to watch you guys work to deal with the families and help them through the most horrific time of their life.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress, especially line of duty death ones. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts, and and you're right. We only have that family for maybe a week to 10 days. What happens after everything's said and done and we're gone? Who takes care of the family? And we've been very fortunate. New Hampshire's small. Everybody knows everybody, and part of our goal on the team is we still reach out to the survivors years. A couple of our survivors have actually come back and being part of the team.
That's great.
And because they know what that individual's going through. Yeah. So I can't say I know how you feel. Well, guess what? She can, because she lost her husband. So it. It's a lot, but again, we take a lot of pride in what we do and the services that we provide, because this is day one. So if we look at, Steve Tower from Goffstown, from day one, here it is almost 4.5 years later. My goal as the benefit specialist is I stay in contact every month with that survivor until they get a denial letter or they get approved. Mm-hmm. And, I talk to Steve's widow every month, either a phone call, email, or text, until, January of 2025, when she notified me that she received her benefit.
It's fantastic.
Your
job's not just over when the funeral is done. I think that's, like I said, it's just incredible how far you guys go to make sure that the book's closed on that, and to make sure that they get.
I can share another case. I'm working a line of duty death of a police officer or correctional officer in Florida. The organization has chose not to assist her, whatever means. It is a non-union law enforcement agency. So through the networking system, this survivor reached out to me and asked me if I could help her on her claim of her husband's death. Correctional officer died within 24 hours of getting off duty from a heart attack and going through the process. So I took the case on, and pro bono. I don't charge anybody for this stuff. And she just received her denial letter a couple weeks ago. And so now she, by under the federal law, she has 33 days to file an appeal, which she did. And so what does that mean? Well, her claim now is given to an appeals lawyer that will do a hearing, and we have to provide evidence to change his mind, or her mind, pretty much. So typically what I do is I'll take a denial letter from the PSOB office. Why did they deny it? And then try to prove those wrong. But where I'm going with this is that I probably will have to fly to Florida to be with her to do her appeals process.
And that's out of pocket for you.
And that's out of pocket.
Yeah.
But that's if you're going to take this on, that's what you have to do. Yeah. Because right now, this woman is alone. They had no children, young couple. Who's going to help her? Yeah. Her organization has chose not to help her and assist her. So she has nobody. So when you take that responsibility, you got to follow it through.
Yeah. And with all your knowledge and experience, I mean, that's just such crucial help to her. That's dude, man, I gotta say, Chief, that's incredible. Just the work that you're doing, and the fact that you're helping her out from a state that you don't even live in, and just want to help her. You don't care about a cost. You don't care about a fee. It's just doing the right thing. And that's what we sign up to do, right? To do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's our morals. That's our ethics, right? It's doing the right thing. And
well, I giggle here because, we're talking about this case from Florida and you're talking about time limits, right? So I have 2 cases. One from Pennsylvania was 9 years and one from Oregon was 11 years. From the time of death to the time that the survivor was paid was 11. And
jeez,
my wife Sandy's over in the other room, and I know if she was here, she would say it was the first time that a medical examiner, my case in Oregon, was the first time that the medical examiner actually changed death certificate. They ruled initially that the cause of death was suffocation by hanging because he was involved in a rollover and strangulation from the seatbelt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not a rocket scientist, but my paramedic background helps out every now and then. And by interviewing the survivor and looking at the pictures of the accident scene and stuff like that, they said he had a heart attack. He literally had a heart attack and went into cardiovascular seizures. And sure enough, she had to retain a forensic medical examiner. She subpoenaed the slides from the state of Oregon. And sure enough, we got the cause of death reversed and it was deemed a line of duty death and the survivor got paid.
That's great.
Yeah.
Man, what a victory story there.
Yeah. One of my greatest cases. And
wow.
And Mary Hales, I have permission to talk about all these cases. Mary Hales from Scappoose, Oregon. And the funny thing is, her daughter was going to school in Nashua.
Oh, wow. What a small world.
What a small world. So very seldom do I get a chance to meet survivors. So she happened to come to New Hampshire to see her daughter. Massachusetts, Lowell, University of Lowell. And we met up in Merrimack and had supper. And that was one of the first times I've ever met one of my survivors that I helped.
Wow. What a great story. That's, again, it's just the fact that she's got roots to the New England area and you're helping them get the process and get those things done is such a great story, man. I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, I can sit here and the medical examiner, the medical examiner in California that she had on retainer did her medical schooling at Mass General and was a huge Patriots fan and Boston Bruins fan. And so much so, she was so discouraged that she told me that any survivor ever needs another medical examiner, forensic medical examiner, she would do it pro bono.
Oh.
And she ended up giving Mary her money back.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Good work, my friend. That is amazing work.
Crazy.
Chief, you're doing great things. As we're winding down here, did you want to give any shout outs to the people that are helping you on the team? By all means, please, give them the kudos. If there's any names or services that you want to give a shout out for, by all means, please do. Here's a platform for it.
Well, there's so many of them and, I don't want to forget anybody.
Sure.
We have a great group of team leaders, because we all have lives and there's no good time to die, so we have team leaders spread out across the state. We have retired Chief Kevin Lasan up in Pittsburgh, who takes care of Franconia Notch North. We have Tom Green, Frank Fretzel, myself, Erica Johnson, John Goldman, Chief from Lakes Region, Earl from Hooksett. I can't believe I'm getting. See, that's why I didn't want to say. He's our honor guard commander. So it's a great team, a great organization. And we do it like I said. We take care of the organization and the family in the first part of a line of duty death, which is the services, and then myself and a couple other guys take over on the benefit side of things to make sure the families and especially the kids, because there's free education in this, are taken care of down the road. And why that's important, which I forgot to mention real quick, is we did have a survivor, volunteer firefighter husband, went to a call, passed, and Earl Lincoln, thank you, Earl Lincoln from Hooksett, retired lieutenant. And, when he died, he was the bread maker. Her house got foreclosed on. Her cars got repossessed because she was a homemaker taking care of young kids. And now the money was dried up.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the red tape and the process, monies don't come easy, and it doesn't come overnight for some of these families. But somebody has to be there to get them there, to make sure they get what they deserve.
I think, honestly, to just chime in with that, though, I think now with technology and social media, it's helped in a way because now people start those GoFundMe pages and they help with some of those fundraising to get the word out. So as the investigations are going and as this whole thing is unfolding and you're working hard as you are, there at least are people that are putting some other things out there for people to help in their time of need. And I've seen that many times now where people, especially people who have larger platforms or, now you got all the apps that, Instagram and TikTok and everything else that is helping to spread the message that, hey, there's a family in need. You have a line of duty death and they need to cover their bills and funeral expenses while investigations are in the process. And I've seen that help tremendously. So,
yeah. Well, that's and I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because you have to remember the funeral service is a business.
Mm-hmm. They need to get paid.
Right. They need to get paid. So when that casket goes in the ground, they're expecting to be paid. Just because we're firefighters or police officers, and we die in the line of duty, it doesn't mean we get free stuff.
Correct.
So, that funeral director in that funeral service, they have to be paid. And, where's this money coming from? And I can tell you again with Jim, when Jim was legally divorced and had custody of the two kids or shared custody. Well, when Jim died, there's no money in a bank account. His paycheck stopped. The girls didn't have access to his accounts to pay. His bills, his electrical bill, his oil bill, his taxes, everything, still has to be done. And if you don't have access to that stuff, it can be very, devastating.
Absolutely.
So local 3639, Eric Thomas, John Snow, and those guys, the union paid some of the bills to get the girls by, and the girls were minors. They weren't even 18 at the time. Kudos to them because somebody had to pay that funeral director.
Right.
And stuff. Most of them are good. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
The Granite State Fire Service Support Team has reached out to the New Hampshire Funeral Directors Association. They've been big supporters. They have donated tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment to us. We work well with them. But as you know, over time, faces change.
Mm-hmm.
New funeral directors come in, funeral homes get bought. They might not know the process here in New Hampshire, but for the fire, most of the time, they're great to work with.
That's fantastic. It's a team effort, right?
Yeah.
So with everything, it requires team. Now, if anybody is ever curious about joining the team, how do they join and what's the process?
Pretty simple. They can reach out to one of the team leaders. We do go right to our website, Granite State Fire Service Support Team. We do have a link to joining the team. You got to fill out an application. It pretty much gets sent around. If you're if you're an unknown in New Hampshire, and we'll do some background checks. Again, just like firefighters, right? People allow us into their homes. They trust us. And we would have to do the same thing because you're coming into somebody's home at their dire needs. We can't have somebody that's not going to be good for the team. Now, with that being said, they might be better off maybe in the equipment trailer and setting up the staging and away from people. So we do have members that just, hey, that family thing is not for me. I don't want to get involved. I'll deal with the staging and the trailers and the equipment, and that's where you'll find me. So fill out an application, reach out to one of us. There is some commitment to it, and if you don't have if you can't make a service, it's okay because unfortunately, there's going to be another one.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate, here in New Hampshire. I'm going to brag a little bit. Our Granite State Fire Service Support Team is probably one of the top 5 teams in the country. As far as what we do, Missouri, Texas, they're great. They're great people. They're great friends of ours. They do a lot of funerals. If you're got your finger on the pulse, Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, they have a lot of first responders dying, a lot of firefighters dying in the line of duty in those states. So for us here, we do probably the vast majority is our level 3 services, guys that are retired, and we just did one last week. Actually, we did 2 in the last 10 days. So that keeps our skills sharp. And that's whether from planning to just making phone calls and getting the department and the organization through that event. So we keep our skills sharp with just doing level 3s. And then when a level 1 happens, we're ready to go.
That's great. Wow. That's incredible information, Chief. I appreciate it. I know this episode's kind of morbid, but as we were talking earlier, this is really important information that everybody should know. And it's not just the state of New Hampshire. It's all around. If you're in the fire service, this is a very important thing to know. It happens. We can't hide the fact. We can't put our heads into the sand and think it's not going to happen to me or it's not going to happen to my department. It's going to be a bad day and we need to be prepared for it. Administration on down, everyone needs to understand that you need to prepare for the worst day. And that is having those packets, that information available. So if something was to happen, your loved ones have that information. Your department has that information of, again, religious needs, who wants to be notified, how you want your services to be conducted. These are very important information that you need to get out to your administration and to your family. You can't just say it word of mouth. You need to write it down. It needs to be sealed, and your administration needs to have that. And Chief Klose, you are a wealth of information. And if anyone needs further information, you can reach out to Chief Klose. He's an open book, by all means.
Yep, absolutely. I don't hold anything back, and I'll help anybody and guide you and stuff. Mike, if I can make one plea, especially on the benefit side for families, because that's what's important. Us taking care of our families. On the Public Safety Officers Benefit website, there is a designation of beneficiary form that every firefighter, especially volunteer and per diem, absolutely should have on file with their fire department. And that's how the payment would be made under the federal law, which I don't know why it's in there. You have to have a designated beneficiary on file with the agency. And with that, it has to be a life insurance policy. While as well as I do, the vast majority of volunteer fire departments do not offer benefits to their volunteers. You as a career guy, me as a full-time fire chief, we have a life insurance benefit, part of our benefit packet. But if people go on and get this designated a beneficiary form filled out and give it and put it in their personnel file, that would save a lot of trouble down the road at the benefit side. And it's so important, and it's a piece of paper nobody talks about.
Wow. That is important information. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And where can they find that again?
That is right on the Public Safety Officer Benefit program website. If you do psob.gov and you want to look for the designation of beneficiary form, you can also find it on the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation website, the designation of beneficiary form. Fill it out. It's very easy. It shows you how the payment is made to the benefit. You sign it, and then somebody has to witness it, and then stick it in your personnel file. And because under the law, you have to have a designated beneficiary on a life insurance. And I've been doing this a long time, and I always ask volunteer firefighters, do they get any benefits? And the 90% say no. And that's more red tape down the road that we would have to fix.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's super important. And I'm glad, can't say enough. Volunteers, you're firefighters. So don't think you don't deserve this. That's why the chief is mentioning this. It's very important information. And please get this form filled out if you haven't done so already. And again, I hope you're listening. If you're not, or if you forgot, by all means, please, again, reach out to Chief Klose, and he'll direct you where you need to go for this.
Absolutely.
And I'll do my best with editing and try to get it in, but I'll definitely put hyperlinks in there when I can. But this is such valuable information all around. I can't say it enough, Chief. Thank you so much for getting this out there to the public, and thank you for being on the show. Also, to move just quickly from the morbid thing, and life and death, but Chief is also, again, a wealth of information education-wise, he loves education, as you could tell from his bio. If you ever have any questions about how to get those chief officer classes, I've reached out to you. You've directed me to the services as well. By all means, please reach out. Those classes are really, if you want to move your career, those are needed. Some people don't like to be going through college programs or these chief officer programs because they are time consuming, but the executive fire officer from the National Fire Academy, if you've never even been to the National Fire Academy, if you're doing yourself a disservice, you should go there and take some classes. It's an amazing thing. It's not, again, I say with fire conferences, it's not just fire conferences that I go to, it's the networking that I go to. So when you're doing these classes at National Fire Academy, you're meeting people from all over the state that are going to these same classes. And so they help you if you're struggling in your fire service and you say you're lacking in paperwork or you're lacking in SOP or trying to figure things out to make your department better. You can meet these people to help make your department better. These are students that are living the same life that you are. They're here for the same purpose. Definitely reach out to Chief Klose if you ever have information about how to get any of these classes done or where to go. He recommends them, he lives it, and he knows what he's talking about.
Well, again, thank you, Mike, for having me. I know this is not your normal subject area, and I appreciate you taking the time and allowing me to get the message out there to take care of our own. So
Absolutely.
I truly appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome, Chief. No, thank you. This has been great. I learned a lot from this. And again, I love to talk about the fire service. And this is an important part of the fire service. Again, not a lot of things that people like to talk about, but this is a really important topic. And that way, if something bad was to happen, maybe this will be an information that they can look up and understand what they need to do. And then they can find the resources for it. Chief Klose, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the C.A.N report. I hope all of you got something out of this. Again, as Chief Klose said, this is kind of out of my normal, but this is important. And it's the fire service, and we all have to educate each other. And that's what I'm trying to bring to all of you, is to educate and to get this knowledge. We have these platforms. It's just not for me. It's for all of you. And whether you're in New Hampshire, Texas, Georgia, it doesn't matter. This is to educate all of us. We are in the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the fire service, and we need to look out for each other. So with that, thank you all for joining the C.A.N report. I love you all. Be safe. Mazel tov.